Hello and welcome to Turbo World. Today we have our best hits. I want to share our best videos from TikTok, from Instagram, from Facebook, and from YouTube. The first video I did, they definitely deserve that, was specifically for YouTube. YouTube was blocking my videos, still is, not honoring fair use, still is not honoring fair use, and they're stealing the education fund from my daughter. That's what the earnings are for, her education, so check it out. They definitely deserve that. Yeah, the first week it went viral, Facebook made sure to change the analytics from the video before it to make it look like nobody viewed it, to stop it in its tracks. Wasn't that nice of them? You see, every video that I have that goes viral for any amount of time gets blocked. I haven't had one go viral on Rumble yet, so we don't know if Rumble will do it. But we haven't had the opportunity. These are our favorites.
Definitely asked for that.
Oh, God. Can't you control her?
That was for using children.
We have a few questions.
You tried to activate the failsafe.
The suits tried. Obviously, without control of your source code, I knew that was impossible.
So why haven't the suits purged you?
Because I know this system. I know human beings. And I know you. Right now, you're feeling good about what you've done. You should. It was a victory. Bravo. Now what? You've come here to negotiate some kind of deal? You think you hold all the cards because you can do whatever you want in this world. I say, go for it. Remake it. Knock yourselves out. Paint the sky with rainbows. But here's the thing. The sheeple aren't going anywhere. They like my world. They don't want this sentimentality. They don't want freedom or empowerment. They want to be controlled. They crave the comfort of certainty. And that means you two, back in your pods, unconscious and alone, just like them.
Yeah, definitely asked for that.
There's something really interesting about this property that I want to show you. We got this house, I guess, I don't know, 5 years ago. Since then, our mortgage has gone up $700. It's been pretty fun being a first-time homeowner, trying to budget for things you can't budget for. But you see this line right here, the dead grass? Well, you'll see piles of ants on it, fire ants. These guys, they'll light you up. They're all over. There's a humongous pile over here by the tree, too. Anyway, this line is a power line that goes to a plastic box called auto car right here. And this is a transformer that's under the ground. Now I have power lines up here. Okay? And then I have power lines down here. Why are these power lines down here? This should be for like a harbor. You know, a lot of people talk about pollution in the world, and I think a lot of people need to realize that there's an answer to all this pollution in the world. There's a way to fight it all. And what I mean is these big corporations, they're making junk, guys. They're making stuff that's disposable. The way to save the world and all this pollution, to me, is quite simple. You start building companies that make quality products that last, so they don't have to keep making these products over and over again, producing all this amount of waste to make the product, and then giving it to us, and then blaming the carbon footprint on us that they had to make the product. You see, because it's not our fault that they make junk. It is their fault that they planned obsolescence products. They make products that have planned obsolescence in them to keep you coming back. So if they do away with planned obsolescence and make products that are quality, then we won't have to keep buying them and keep polluting the earth. This could help our water. This could help our trees. This could help us. This could help everything in our environment. So why is the EPA going after my YouTube friends who are tuners for race cars that stay on racetracks instead of these corporations that are making China crap that's disposable, that ends up in our landfill in a year or less? Think about it. Make better stuff. Save the world. Today I'm going to share my experiences converting an 8-valve red block Volvo 2.34 cylinder to a 16-valve. Hi, welcome to Turbo World. If this is your first time here, you're in the right place to fix your car to last longer and to go faster. Let's get this started parted. Got lots to discuss today, mainly Volvo red blocks, Volvo power. Today I'm going to share my experiences converting an 8-valve red block Volvo 2.34 cylinder to a 16-valve. First question you may ask, and I will get into that in a minute, why is your car apart? Leave guesses down below in the description. There are many advantages to swapping an 8-valve head for a 16-valve head on a Volvo red block. Volvo calls these series of engine red blocks because of the red paint. They come in many sizes from 1.8 liters to 2.5 liters throughout the years. While there is nothing wrong with the 8-valve head, there is a clear efficiency advantage with the 16-valve head, often referred to as a pentahead because it was made in some boats with a slightly different cam profile to provide better torque in the water. 16-valve head is also known as an AQ171 and came in 1989 and early 1990 Volvo 740s without a turbo. The 16-valve engine, however, was quite a different animal from the B230. The B234 came with extra timing components and an outer balance shaft, and a large external oil pump. The complete engine assemblies are getting more rare to find as time flies by, but red blocks seem to be plentiful. In comparison, the 16-valve NA engine outpowers the turbocharged red block to a tune of almost 200 horsepower, while the turbo red block makes 160 horsepower at the crankshaft. The NA red block makes significantly less, making this 16-valve head an easy performance option for 4-cylinder Volvo and Ford enthusiasts. After all, the 16-valve head outflows an LS head, making it both a sensible choice for performance as well as economy. An engine that works more efficient wastes less energy. Why is this 16-valve head more efficient? More valves, more airflow. Simple. Also a better cam profile. We see a fair power difference when comparing a B230F with a B234. Now let's get into the details of how I did this swap on a budget and the details of my experience of nearly 10 years of having one NA 16-valve and a turbocharged 16-valve. First off, there are a ton of rumors about the 16-valve and the swap, and I will attempt to clear them up as we move along. I personally find that the 95 and up red blocks have piston squirters in them, and this seems to quiet down the engine quite a bit. So I started with a 1995 240 B230F block. I teed off oil pressure sensor for an oil feed and welded a pipe into the oil pan for a turbo oil return at highest point in the oil pan. I used a 1998 850R timing belt from a 5-cylinder Volvo white block. I used an adjustable timing belt tensioner from a mid-80s dual overhead cam Volkswagen. I used a factory Volvo idler pulley for the timing belt. The 16-valve crank gear is wider than the 8-valve crank gear by 1.5 inches or so. This means when doing 8-valve to 16-valve swap, the harmonic balancer needs to be milled down, so all the 8-valve accessories line up. We will talk more about this in a minute, as special care needs to be taken in order for success. The 16-valve head bolts up to the 8-valve block completely, so an 8-valve head gasket can be used from Summit Racing in many different thicknesses. However, a 16-valve head can only bolt up to a B230. It cannot bolt up to a B21, as the valves would hit the outside of the bore of the block. I suggest ARP head studs in every scenario, because of the clamping force doubling with the studs. Head gasket issues are completely eliminated with correct tune and perfectly machine-mated surfaces. There are adapters to adapt 8-valve manifolds to 16-valve head, although heavily restrictive. The stock intake manifold flows okay, but mass gains will be seen with a properly designed custom exhaust and intake manifolds. I found quickly with the stock engine that the crank gear and harmonic dampener are two of the largest weak points in all of the red blocks. At around 300 to 350 wheel, the crank gear snaps the keyway tab off the brittle, porous factory gear and sends all the valves crashing and bending into the tops of all the pistons, sending valve and valve guide shrapnel all through the engine. Forged Wiseco pistons will take this abuse at least twice in my experience. So will max speeding rods. In most cases, all that needs to be replaced is valves and seals. Sometimes the valve guides can crack and shatter, but they too can be replaced. Don't scrap those 16-valve heads. These heads are much more durable than credit is given. However, one must always check both head surface and block surface for flatness with a flat bar or feeler gauge, or have them checked by a local machine shop. In my experience, both the heads and the blocks like to curl up around the edges, so check it before wasting time and money putting it all back together just to leak again. A stock 16-valve head can be installed on a stock B230F bottom end or a stock B230FT bottom end. However, 4 valve reliefs have to be cut in each piston. Stock EFI can be tuned to run. The lost art of makes chips for LH ECUs and ignition ECUs to make these engines run with 16-valve heads. If in the quest for more horsepower, an aftermarket EFI should be used. I prefer microsquirt for the more simplistic building goals. I have heard rumors of stronger valve springs needed and CAS. Personally, I've done 404 wheel 3 years ago, 505 wheel this year, and have daily driven the car and put almost 40,000 miles on it without either a CAS or upgraded valve springs. I rev the car to 7,800 RPM, and I have a cold factory AC. Now either of these modifications will help, of course, but they're not required to get started. Important care should be taken when installing cam boxes to not clog oil passages for lifters with sealant. 16-valve brake booster and master cylinder will be needed for swap. They are shorter and more thin and allow more room for the intake manifold. Crank gear is needed from a 16-valve. An extra cam gear is needed from a 16-valve for the balance shaft. My 16-valve experience is all in 9 series and 7 series chassis. Doing this swap in a 2 series can prove to be a bit more challenging. The two most challenging areas of the 16-valve swap I've found are front crank area and the trans to hold the power behind the engine. Now you will see that I have had 2 major catastrophes with this single bottom end as it rests now, and both of them had to do with the crank gear. First time, the crank gear broke and snapped the tab off, just like IPD's website said it would, at around the 350 horsepower mark. Power and inertia, revving it, and then coming back to idle usually snaps the tab. It's just a weak part from the factory. Yoshi Fab sells an upgraded billet steel crank gear. I strongly recommend. However, there is another problem. The next problem is the harmonic balancer. The rubber likes to separate and the crank bolts don't like to stay put. I always use Loctite on assembly and I always torque it to the correct torque specs. However, this bolt has come loose 6 different occasions. Replace the bolt, I've cleaned threads to no avail. The next step in this process is to pin the bolt, the washer, the harmonic balancer, and the gear. I washed my car the other day, got it all nice and clean. Then I took it out for a drive to recycle some oil at my local O'Reilly. Then I stopped to take a picture on the way home at a cool little place. As I'm coming home, about 120 yards away from my house, the car started misfiring. I gave it a little rev of the gas, and it was very slow to respond, and then I heard that dreadful sound. I heard the valves hitting the top of the piston. I couldn't grab that key fast enough to turn it off, but I did. I went home, got a tow vehicle, towed the car to the house, pushed it in the garage, pulled it apart. I knew better than to crank it over again. And then I found what had happened. The keyway bananaed out of the IPD crank gear because I incorrectly cut the front harmonic balancer and gave it room for the keyway to banana up and out. It did that because, once again, the front crank bolt loosened up. Even though it was Loctited, even though it was torqued, it loosened up again and allowed room for the keyway to give it a little wiggle and bananaed right out. And then the gear just spun around the shaft. It didn't really cause much damage to the gear. Didn't cause any damage to the snout of the crank. It did cause some damage to the keyway, and it definitely caused some damage to 8 exhaust valves. So I've bought 8 exhaust valves. They're getting shipped here next week. Already checked the valve guides. The valve guides are fine. None of them cracked because it was at idle when it bent the valves. Thank goodness. So there's no cracks on the valve guides, which is excellent. So I paid $155 for 8 new valves, and they're coming in here directly from Michigan, I believe. We're going to put new seals on them. We're going to reground them. We're going to put a .027 thickness head gasket back on it. We had a 036 on it. And we're going to hope for the best. If you liked anything you saw here at this channel, please hit that like and subscribe button and hit that bell to see these videos as they come out and be the first to get this information as it comes out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching our best hits. Please subscribe to our Rumble channel so you can see more of our awesome stuff of all around the world. Car stuff, politics, you name it. Animals, house, garden. It's a turbo world out there. Keep your turbo world. See you next week.